Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining CDI's Tech Summit. This session is on CDI Carrier Network Solutions. Here's our agenda. First of all, my name is Rob Shenrukis. I've been here at CDI about 14 years. And really before CDI, I spent about 11 years at AT&T and another 11 or so companies like Level 3 and other CLECs and fiber-based carriers that you've probably never heard of. And I think the theme of this session is really carriers that you probably never even heard of. So we're going to cover how CDI Carrier Network Solutions works for you, some solutions that are available, and some use cases. So many choices are available now. How did that happen? So probably 30, 40 years ago, your parents probably paid the phone bill to Ma Bell, as it was called, New Jersey Bell, Pacific Bell, New York Bell, and then sometime in the mid '80s, some of you may have heard of a carrier called MCI. MCI thought that Ma Bell was a monopoly, and they filed an antitrust suit that forced Ma Bell to, number one, break up into local operating companies for like local dial tone and things of that sort, and a separate division for long distance that turned into AT&T. And then what MCI wanted to do is they wanted to compete for your long distance traffic. So you might remember years ago about having to pick a long distance carrier. So anyway, that's really what prompted all of the choice that you have, and it was a really successful legal ruling that literally created thousands and thousands of carriers. So now what do you do, right? So part of what CDI Carrier Network Solutions is to help you navigate all of your choices from service providers to the solutions that they offer. So half the battle is knowing what carriers to engage. So you're probably familiar with the AT&Ts and the Verizons and those are carriers you should absolutely look at. We can help you look at those sort of brand name carriers and household name carriers, but there's an abundance of options that you have. So how do you find out who to engage, right? How do you find, let's say you're embarking on an internet project for your company, a wide area network replacement. Um, Here's an idea. Why don't you go outside and climb the utility poles? Put on a hard hat, climb your way up, and look at the cables that are up on the top of the utility pole. Because one thing that this lawsuit in the 80s did is it forced the company that owned what's called the right of way. And a right of way is, a piece of property, it's a utility pole, or it's a conduit, like a pipe where cables are placed. So that ruling forced the entity that owns the utility pole to let other carriers and service providers attach their cables to the pole. So here's an idea. You have a new WAN project, climb up on that pole, bring your notebook, put a hard hat on, and look at the cables and see what your options are. Now, if you're in a city, how about this idea? Pop a manhole cover. Go ahead and climb down that manhole, bring a hacksaw with you, cut open the conduits, and make note of what fiber carriers are in the conduits. If that doesn't work, just Google fiber WAN carriers that I don't know about near me. Before you end this session, let's both agree that those are completely ridiculous ideas. I use these examples to sort of make a point that there are so many other carriers at your disposal and so many other service providers and services at your disposal that it's important that you understand what all of your options are, but it's a difficult thing for you to navigate. You don't know where all the fiber is and who operates, but we do. That's what CDI Carrier Network Solutions does. We have knowledge of all the carriers, of over 100 carriers in the market. We've got access to what are called building lists, which identifies what carriers have their fiber facilities built into a building, and equally important, what floor they're on. So how do you know if your buildings are lit? a building being lit is, means a fiber carrier like a Zayo or a Crown Castle or a Cogent has their facilities in your building and ideally on your floor. That's what we refer to in this business as your building being lit by a service provider. If not, maybe that carrier has fiber a block and a half away. Maybe it's not that difficult for them to build that fiber into your building in exchange for a 2 or 3 year commitment on a service order. And then, as I said earlier, is your floor lit? Like, if you're living a 50-story building in Midtown Manhattan, if carrier XYZ is on the 10th floor and you're on the 50th floor, you know, that riser cable in that building is just as much of a challenge to route conduit and fibers through as, utility poles and conduits that are living under the streets. So understanding that fiber availability impacts pricing, diversity, and lead times. And let's not forget about wireless, right? So, CDI carrier network solutions, it's our job to make sure that you're aware of all of your options. And if you've got rural locations that may not have the benefit of some of these other alternative metro fiber companies, you know, maybe it's a good Verizon or AT&T or T-Mobile 4G or 5G wireless location. Or what about satellite, right? So again, rural locations, you're looking for cost effectiveness, looking for redundancy and diversity. Let's not forget about some of these wireless options, and that's part of the value proposition that CDI brings forward to you is making you aware of all of those options. Let's talk about it's classic, right? The MPLS replacement use case. Let's say you installed MPLS 3 to 5 years ago with a commonly known global carrier. It's either time to renew that MPLS agreement or replace it with something else. You're probably going to want to consider some sort of SD-WAN solution. You have a few options. You can either call your current MPLS provider, maybe it's Verizon, maybe it's AT&T, ask them to quote SD-WAN. That's easy, and you should absolutely do that. But there's so many other options available. There's other SD-WAN solutions that you may not be aware of, and that's not so easy because you may not even know where to start. You have a couple of options with SD-WAN, right? You can do what we call roll your own SD-WAN edge, meaning maybe CDI can help you scope out Fortinet or Meraki or CloudGenix edge devices. VeloCloud's another popular vendor that we've implemented and installed. But they need reliable WAN facilities and WAN circuits like internet services. So you're going to need to know for all of your locations, what are your best internet options at each and every location? Or what if you don't want to roll your own? There's an abundance of what are called managed SD-WAN providers out there. Companies like Ariaka or Big Leaf. And if you're scratching your head and like, who is Ariaka? Who is Big Leaf? That's kind of the point. There are so many options that you may not even be aware of that CDI is aware of and has experience with. So this is a challenge, right? Where do you even start? That's the challenge. Number one, do you know that these other niche specialty managed SD-WAN providers exist? And how do you make contact? Do you really want to go on their website and randomly ask for someone to reach out to you? And do you want to? And number one, do you know who to reach out to? And do you want to go through that process? And you probably should get multiple quotes. So do you want to do this with 3 or 4 different service providers and, dare I say, different 3 or 4 different salespeople? So therein lies the challenge. So how do we work for you? What can we do for you? How can we make this a simpler process for you to follow? Sarah, let's talk about how carriers compensate for sales. The carrier, as you might expect, they've got a sales force. They probably have a sales force, and they've got quota-bearing sales representatives who get paid to sell that carrier's service. So that sales rep sells something, they get a sales commission. Or the carriers can pay a sales agent. This is this is a form of an alternate channel for the service providers and carriers to have an organization or an agent represent their services. That's what CDI is. We're a sales agent for over 100 carriers. So here's our value proposition. We're literally your one-stop shop for all carrier and service provider requirements. We sit on your side of the table. The carriers really want to work with us because we have something that's very valuable to them. That's you. That's a relationship with a customer who's in a buying cycle for something that these carriers are selling. But we're sitting on your side of the table, and we're sort of acting as your line of defense against, you know, eliminating carriers that you don't need to waste your time with, and spending time with carriers that you should get to know. But we're your advocate, and we're sitting on your side of the table. And then because of our knowledge of services and service providers and fiber services and who's built into what building and whatnot, we can very easily filter out from hundreds of carriers the handful that it makes sense for us to engage with on your behalf. It eliminates your need to go make new relationships with new service providers and their sales reps. We've got location specific fiber carrier awareness, as I said earlier. We've got access to building lists that are populated with inventories of what fiber is in each building and what provider is responsible for owning and operating that fiber. The cool thing for you is you get the same or better pricing. So again, the service provider only they're only going to pay one entity. They're going to pay a sales rep or they're going to pay a sales agent. And regardless of who they pay, what you pay on your invoice is going to be the same or even better than if you went out and engaged with a service provider sales rep on your own. The other value add that we include is, half the battle is selecting the carrier, and then the work really starts, right? Then there's a project to onboard services and install services at each location. So the other thing that we provide is another level of oversight in the form of project management to shield you from having to deal with all the details of network installs and keeping track of install dates and things of that sort. A couple of other points here. We are not reselling these services. We are simply representing these services to you as an agent of the service provider. The service provider is going to send you the bill. The service provider is going to support you. In other words, if there's an issue with service, you're going to call that service provider directly. If you have a challenge getting response, or there's a particularly critical service ticket that you need help with, we have very good relationships with these service providers, and we may be able to get to a different level of management in the course of an escalation, if you've got a site down or the normal sort of support line is not being responsive. But at the end of the day, it is the service provider's responsibility to provide support to you as their client. So in a nutshell, you're getting carrier-funded zero-cost consulting. This value that we're providing to you, it doesn't cost you a dime. It saves you a ton of time, and the outcome you get are the appropriate service provider and carrier services to solve your business requirement at a relatively in a more of a painless sort of buying process, and you're going to have access to at least 3 proposals from 3 service providers who are qualified to solve that requirement. And this is part of our value add to you. And we're being funded by the carrier to represent them, and the benefit and value to you is it doesn't cost you anything. Let's talk about Microsoft Teams, right? So the COVID pandemic has forced all of us, most of us, to work remotely. And while that was happening, Microsoft's Office 365 platform has really been very, very successful for them. So many people, including CDI, migrated their email to Office 365. We're all using Office 365. And we all started using Microsoft Teams, as maybe you have, and a lot of our clients have started using Teams even more so than they were using it before the pandemic hit. So a little bit about Microsoft Teams. It is becoming the dominant collaboration app. Sharing of documents, hosting meetings, making it more convenient to keep up with messages, and just makes it easier to collaborate. It has become the fastest growing collaboration platform in the world. So it's a great collaboration platform, and it does have basic basic calling capabilities. Like there's an Office 365 feature you can opt into called Cloud PBX. Works great, right? If you need dial tone voicemail, basic, conferencing features, it may be a great fit for you, and we can help, consult and guide you on that. But if you've got more complicated requirements, you've got enterprise level PBX functionality requirements, or you're running a call center or a contact center, Microsoft's Cloud PBX it was not built to support that. So when you select Office 365 to be your cloud voice platform, you have choices, right? You can either select Microsoft as your call plan. In other words, buy the dial tone for Microsoft. I don't think Microsoft really wants to be in that business. They make it easy to click a button and you can select them as a call plan, but they really encourage service providers and carriers who are in the business of providing value-added telephony services. They encourage them to partner as what's called direct routing partners. So you can either select Microsoft as your call plan, or you can select other niche, again, carriers that you may not have heard of. Companies like Evolve IP, Call Tower, Masergy. These are companies who have direct connections into Microsoft's Cloud PBX system, but they offer value-added services, very, very competitive pricing, other levels of support and service. That's an option that you have. Or if you want to, again, I'm going to use the term roll your own. If you want to manage your own Microsoft Teams telephony solution and take advantage of your Office 365 capabilities, yet you want more control over the dial tone or the public switch networking services, to make phone calls on the public switch telephone network, we can help you set up what's called your own direct routing. We can help you set up what are called session border controllers, where you can go out. CDI can help you source the best SIP services, SIP trunks and SIP services to connect into those session border controllers and help integrate those session border controllers into your Microsoft Teams environment, and even into an existing Cisco phone system that you might have. So the point is that you have a lot of choice, and most of our customers take advantage of our ability to help them, again, navigate the choice they have in setting up the most optimal Microsoft Teams voice environment. Let's look at a use case. This is an actual CDI customer, a media services agency. Before, right? They're using a legacy Cisco on-premise phone system. COVID hits. Most people are working from home. Nobody has a physical phone in their house. People start using soft phone clients. People start leveraging, what's this Microsoft Teams thing that I have that I have an account with? Maybe it makes sense to start leveraging that more, and that's really what sparked their interest. So this media services agency started really embracing Microsoft Teams for all of their collaboration and chat. Listen, we're a Cisco partner. We're a Cisco telephony partner. We have a great relationship with them. But work from home, on a Cisco platform just has some other levels of complexity and requirements and expressways and maybe managing VPNs and whatnot. But anyway, so they were leveraging their existing Cisco phone system, but we're thinking forward down the line that because of their investment in Microsoft Teams, let's figure out a way to leverage Microsoft Teams here. These legacy on-prem telephone systems led them to the need to source SIP trunks at each of their locations, public switch telephony circuits. So if they were looking 3 years out, and they were at a decision-making point of either investing in their existing on-premise phone system, would have cost them about $800,000 over 3 years. Almost $300K in the first year. So an expensive proposition. That's just for the Cisco licensing and Cisco products. Then there's the public switch telephony network, PSTN circuit, SIP trunks and whatnot. Would have cost them, $462K over 3 years. So it's an expensive proposition to continue down the path of an on-prem phone system. So what we did for this media services agency is we created an integrated solution consisting of Microsoft Teams and the Microsoft Cloud PBX function through their Office 365 account. And then we partnered with a company called Evolve IP. Evolve IP is one of these, boutique, niche direct routing partners of Microsoft. And what Evolve IP brings to the table is more advanced telephony capabilities and services. They were running a call center, so Evolve IP has certain contact center offerings that Microsoft Teams Cloud PBX doesn't have. They started using the Microsoft Teams client for all calling as opposed to physical phones. And here's another important thing, right? So at the end of the day, if you've got a user who's using a Microsoft Teams-based platform, at the end of the day, you as the responsible party for delivering a quality experience for your end users. You got to figure out how you're going to support the end users, right? So the cool thing about Evolve IP is they have a service where they can provide tier 2 and tier 3 troubleshooting support for all Microsoft Teams functionality and Evolve IP functionality. So this means you don't need to become an expert in Microsoft Teams telephony services. You can rely on a company like Evolve IP to provide that tier 2 and tier 3 troubleshooting support should it be required. A very valuable service offering. So the net, ROI savings of over 600K over 3 years. So it was a complete home run. And what did we do? We selected the best UCaaS provider. In this case, it was Evolve IP that made the most sense. We jointly architected the overall solution with the customer and Evolve IP. And CDI's professional services arm provided the implementation services to deliver an outcome that resulted in several thousand users using a Microsoft Teams client and Evolve IP's contact center services. And it was really a great experience, super ROI, and that's just an example of the options that you have and sort of the value-added services that CDI can provide. So in terms of all that we offer in the carrier services and connectivity world, it's helping you navigate your UCaaS and hosted VoIP options, with Microsoft Teams integration in mind. And then, good old connectivity solutions, right? Internet services, point-to-point services, Ethernet services, SIP trunks, right? Again, helping you to navigate the plethora of available carriers that, again, you probably haven't heard of, but we have relationships with. We've got a deep, what we call our back office that works with all the carriers and works on all the solution design and quoting. Talk about mobility solutions, right? If you're still providing, mobility solutions for either your employees or you've got wireless services that you're running in your business, right? Maybe you are running, 4G, 5G uh, data services at some of your locations, or you've got mobile, you've got vehicles around the roads, and they've got routers in these vehicles, and they're communicating to a 4G or 5G wireless data service. We can help you with that. Or you're looking to, maybe it makes sense to, switch from AT&T to T-Mobile for your company's cell phone. We can help you with those sort of things. And then there's overall telecom expense management, right? So, having been in this world, in the telecom world for over 20 years, I can tell you that, if you've got a large global voice and data network, at the end of the day, someone is receiving those bills. The bills are complicated. Errors are made. So, telecom expense management is an industry in and of itself, and there's several vendors out there who specialize in that. And again, through this carrier services capability that CDI offers, we have relationships with several telecom expense management companies, and then data center and co-location services, right? If you are looking to lift your infrastructure out of a a building that you own and operate, and you're looking to go to a co-location provider like an Equinix or a CoreSite or somebody like that, again, we've got relationships with lots of data center colo providers all over the world. And you may not know what all of your options are. We do. We can help you source great colo services. So here's a sampling of the service providers that we're bringing to you, and we can help sort out for you. I don't know, based on the use case and the technology requirement that you have. Chances are you probably haven't even heard of 90% of these carriers, but these are carriers that you should hear of. I had an experience where I was watching a football game, and the Seahawks were playing, and they were playing at Lumen Stadium. Like, Lumen, it's Lumen. Well, guess what? Lumen used to be CenturyLink. CenturyLink acquired Global Crossing and Level 3, and again, other carriers that you've never even heard of. So Lumen is a powerhouse global network service provider that you may not even know existed, but they've got networks and facilities all over the world, tons and tons of cool voice and data services. And they're just one example of the service providers that we're bringing forth to you and helping you navigate this maze of the options that you have. So in summary, if you've got a voice and data service provider requirement that you're trying to solve for, do you really want to deal with multiple carrier services reps? We are representing you as your agent. We take a vendor agnostic approach. We're dealing only with facts. We're going to get multiple quotes, and we're going to really keep the carriers honest, right? And they know this is how we operate, so we sort of keep them on their toes. It's a consultative approach. We're a broker to the carriers. Pricing is important. You are going to get the same or better pricing as compared to if you went through this process all on your own. You're going to get a level of project management upon order execution, and it's no cost to you. It is a no-brainer. It is a win-win for you, for us, and for the carrier. So, a call to action. Are you paying for services that you don't need? Are you paying too much for services you do need? When do your contracts expire? Are your current services meeting your business requirements in terms of functionality, performance, redundancy? Let us help. Let us help you solve this problem. We're reaching the end of our time. I appreciate your time. If this is of interest to you, I urge you to contact your account manager or hit us on our website, and we'll be glad to see if we can help you. So thank you for your attendance, and have a great day.